am going to just talk a little bit today about, some of the things that I think are really important to understand about social media. And I'm going to try not to be too technical about it, but I do think that understanding the algorithms, particularly when you're using Instagram and Facebook, I think understanding the algorithms is a really important part of the experience. So I can't see the chat while I'm in this mode, so I'll kind of duck back at the end and I'll have a look at some of the questions. So I hope that's okay. Now, let's just start. I'm going to talk about Facebook and Instagram mainly. I assume they will be the two platforms that you're already using or are planning on using. Facebook, the Facebook Newsfeed algorithm is a very complex little beast, and Facebook keeps it very very secretive, but they do give us some understanding of how it works. And so essentially what happens is if you have, say, 1,000 people following your Facebook page, every time you post, they're not necessarily going to see your post pop into their newsfeed. So what's happening is the newsfeed algorithm is running through a series of checks and balances over your content, and it's deciding which of those 1,000 people are going to see that piece of content. So there's 4 checks that it does. One is on your inventory. And so inventory refers to everything that you've ever done before, what your page says, all the detail in your about section, all the keywords, all the things that you've written in your post. It sort of whizzes over those because it wants to understand who you are and what you talk about, and the types of photos that you share, the types of content that you share. So it's really important to make sure that your page is really up to date and that your about section has lots of keywords about what it is that you do. So if you're a watercolorist, then you want to make sure that you're mentioning the type of artwork that you do, the galleries that you're in, where you're located, what your subject matter is, and all of those things, so that when people are looking, they can find you, and so that the algorithm knows what you're talking about. The second thing it's looking for is signals, and signals are the likes and the comments and the reactions and the shares that you're getting on your content. So from looking at the inventory, so who you are, what you do, what you talk about, looking at how people respond to you and engage with you. The third thing it does is it makes predictions, and it tries to predict out of that 1,000 people who's going to be most likely to engage with your content. And then in the background, what's happening is the algorithm is keeping up a ranking and relevance score. So every time you post, depending on how well it does, it's kind of keeping this running score on how you're doing. So the algorithm, you might post and the algorithm might decide out of those 1,000 people that 210 would be interested in your content. So it pushes it out into those news feeds. And then depending on their usage, when they go in, how often they go in, it will eventually pop up in their news feed. So if it pops up in my news feed and I ignore it, the algorithm takes it out of my news feed and I won't see it. But if I comment, then I start to create this little bubble of reach around myself. So this is your ability to get past that original set of followers and actually reach an audience beyond those that know who you are. So if I comment, depending on my own set of friends, how many, how often they engage with me, how often I post, all of those things, some of my friends will see that I have commented, and it'll say Erica McInerney has commented on this post, and they might be drawn in just to see what it is that I've said. And then if they comment or they like or do something like that, then they start to create a little bubble of reach around them. And so what starts to happen, and if it starts to happen quickly, the algorithm will keep swinging back to check on you. So if you start to get that engagement, the algorithm's actually going to keep passing over your content and pushing it out to more and more of that original 1,000 followers. If during the course of the day or a few hours your content gets really popular, the algorithm then starts to put it back into the news feed of the people who originally ignored it in the first place. So understanding the Facebook algorithm is really important, because when you post your content, whilst you're posting it for your audience and the content is aimed at your audience, you've got to get past the algorithm first. You've got to make the algorithm understand what your content is about, so that it can make predictions, so that it can decide who's going to see your content. So I hope that makes sense, but please do ask me questions at the end. Now, Instagram is different. When Facebook took over Instagram and changed their algorithm, they've been pretty much tinkering with it ever since. But it does have a very different way of working. And the most fundamental difference is that when I was talking before about how if I comment on something, it appears in other people's feeds. Well, that doesn't happen really in Instagram. So you lose that ability to kind of reach out. And so we use hashtags to kind of be discovered, to find new audiences. And I'll talk about hashtags in a minute. But the newsfeed algorithm for Instagram is looking at 3 key things. 1 is interest, 2 is recency, and 3 is relationship. And interest is if people are interested in your content. The more interested they are, the more often they go to your profile, the more often they engage on your posts, is going to determine, sorry, I've got a cat. The second one is recency. Now, everyone knows that Instagram is no longer instant, and but they do preference content that is most recent. So if somebody hasn't heard from you for a while and you've posted 4 times since the last time they saw a post from you, Instagram's going to serve them the most recent content first. So that's why sometimes when you're going through your Instagram feed, you might see stuff from yesterday, and then you might go to their page and realize that you've missed a whole bunch of posts, and that's just because it hasn't popped up in your newsfeed. Instagram doesn't hide anything from the newsfeed like Facebook does. It never takes anything out. And in fact, if you sit and you scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, you will eventually see all of the content from all of the people that you follow. So the third thing that it's looking at is relationships. So as a user of Instagram, in order to populate my newsfeed, it's looking at my relationships. Am I connected to this person? Don't forget that Instagram can use the back end as well, can see who we're all connected to. How often do I visit that profile? Do we message each other? Do we tag each other in things? So having strong relationships with your followers is a really good thing. Also in the comments as well. If you have a lot of back and forth in the comments, then that shows that you have a strong relationship with that person. I put 3 other things up in here, which I won't talk about too much, but frequency, following, and usage are the 3 secondary things that this newsfeed algorithm is looking at. And frequency is how often are you posting, how many people are following you, and what is the usage habits of those people. Everybody's Instagram feed is completely and utterly unique from the next, and it really comes down to what your preferences are. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, like I said, with Facebook, understanding what the algorithm's trying to achieve can make it a little bit easier to understand why your content's not being seen and why it is, and why people are seeing it at different times. So I'm just going to move, I want to talk about content as well, but most of the questions that I get asked when I'm talking about Instagram, when people are fairly new, is hashtags. How do they use them? What do they do? So in a nutshell, hashtags are just simply a search term. They're a way to group together a conversation around a particular term, and they're used massively in Instagram, not so much in Facebook, but if you're not using them in Instagram, you should be, because you won't be found if you don't. Now you're going to get these sheets, and so I put a fair bit of information in here just to sort of help you with a bit of a formula. You can have 30 hashtags in a post, but it looks a little bit crazy. So maybe if you stick to sort of 9 to 12, might be a good number. And I've got a little bit of a formula here just to help you think about the types of hashtags that you might use. One is always use your location tag. So tell people in the location, but also use a location hashtag, because people are often searching for places. So if it's relevant, your country, city, town, suburb, wherever you are, your business name, your personal name, and any hashtags that you create for user-generated content. So if you want people to share, if people purchase some of your art, if you want them to share their photos, then give them a hashtag that they can use, that you can easily search on to find it. Now, I've got here product or service, which isn't necessarily relevant to artists, but you want to be using multiple hashtags to describe actually what it is that you do or what you're selling. But don't go for the most obvious. That, using the hashtag artist, there would be millions. And the minute that you use that hashtag, you won't be discovered, because so many people are posting on that hashtag that you'll just get lost. So have a think about and do a lot of research around some of the hashtags that you might use. The other thing to think about is, what's your audience actually looking for? They're not necessarily looking for a watercolorist, but they might be looking for some of these other things that I've got here: interior inspo, interiors, on my wall, office interior. Like, what is your audience or your potential customers looking for in order to find you? Are they going to hang it? Are they going to put your sculpture in their garden? Things like that. Just have a little bit of a think about it. And then I generally put in like one or two, what I call fishing tags. So those larger tags. So for me, sometimes I'll put in girl bosses or women in business, because I know that my audience is kind of, looking on those tags. They might also be your audience as well. If you think that, professional women might be interested in your artwork, then maybe you could do a little bit of fishing around in that space. Mix them up. Don't use the same ones over and over again. I use a notes app on my phone, and I just keep making these little bundles that I can copy and paste easily into my caption or my first comment. So yeah, hashtags, look, they do take a little bit of sort of fiddling to find ones that work, but it's better to put in the effort to use them than not to use them, because you really will struggle to be seen. A little bit about content. Now, a lot of people, just think about the thing that they do. And I've put down the bottom here, big picture, small details. So the big picture is that you are an artist, or the big picture is that you are a sculptor. But that's not the story. And that's not the story that's going to fill your feed in a daily post or a 4 times a week post. So you really have to pull out the small details. The big picture might be a piece of a sculpture that you're working on. And don't wait till the end to show the finished product. You've got all of this time that you're working on this project. So show people the small details. Show them the value, show them the time and the energy that goes into creating something like this, because that's how you build the idea of value. So that when the sculpture is made and perhaps you put a price tag on it, the people that have followed the journey understand, they've seen the hours, they've seen the intricate detail that you can't see in just a one photo. So, just be thinking all of the time, without giving away your secrets or your technique if you don't want to. You want to make sure that you're giving people, you're letting people into the story. And Instagram particularly has some really good functions for doing that, actually using the stories function. Content that works really well on social networks is personal stories. Who are you? What makes you tick? What inspires you? What do you like? What are you reading? What are you listening to in the studio? All of these things might seem a bit silly, but But for people who aren't artists, who aren't in your world, actually getting some insight into the process, the creative process, and the people can be, you know, a really good experience. Relatable content always works really well. So if there's something that happens to you that you know happens to other people, you can talk about that. I've got influencers on here and user-generated content. So that's really just finding people who believe in you, who might have some of your work and be happy to say that so that you can share it. Fake it till you make it is not a saying that I use very often, but by fake it till you make it, I mean show, don't tell. You know, show your painting on a wall, hang it up, put a chair, style it, turn it into a little corner, and just say something like, I really love seeing my art on, you know, on people's walls. You don't have to say that it's the wall in your lounge room, but, you know, it generates that idea that people are purchasing this, people are hanging this in their homes, in their offices. Showing your work as it will be can be a really important way to inspire people. Just showing it sort of flat on, you know, on the table isn't necessarily showing it in its best light, or giving people the idea that, oh yeah, that might look great above my bed, or I'd love to have that in my office, or whatever it is. Other content that you can use is events that you go to, openings, galleries, anything that you're a part of. And, you know, that behind the scenes and the work in progress can be really, really interesting. And as I said earlier, something that people can really engage with. Helen's going to be talking about her amazing Instagram following. And one of the things that really stands out when you go and have a look at her profile and her feed is consistency. And consistency is really important, particularly, again, in Instagram, which I hope that you're already using or are thinking about using. Consistency gives people something to hold on to, something that they're interested in. When they start following you because they see a post that they love, and then you keep providing them with a really consistent experience, then they will continue to engage with that experience. So work out what it is that you're going to do and practice. Some people will use a particular filter on all of their images. Some people will use similar lighting, or spaces, or a particular rug that they lay things out on, or things like that, just to show that consistency. When you're in Instagram and you're following certain accounts, there are ones that you will follow that you will instantly know when their post pops into your feed, you will instantly know it's them, because they will have a certain consistency. But you want to make sure that it's reasonably flexible as well. And again, stories can provide you with a way to create interest and create conversations with people, whilst not sort of messing with your beautiful feed that you've curated. If you're going to be sharing content, just be mindful of sharing content that actually looks good in your feed. If somebody has hung your painting on their wall and they've sent you a really terrible photo of it, you don't really have to use it. You know, again, you could perhaps share it in your stories if it's going to make your feed not look very nice. And then, you know, things like, you know, if there are memes or quotes or something that you would like to share in that space, and you see it and it's blurry and it's been reshared a dozen times and it's the wrong color, then you can just recreate it. Some of the tools that I think are really useful is having a good phone. You know, I've got an iPhone 10, and the camera in that is insane. There could be photographers out there listening to me who are cringing right now, but generally for day-to-day creating content, you know, if you've got a decent phone and good lighting, you can really, really make your Instagram work. A good tripod with a phone grip Gimbals are these things that if you're making videos, you can take the shake out of it. Having some backgrounds, you know, rugs, tiles, walls, things that you're using. Make sure you have a little toolkit of props and lights and all of those things. Just having those at hand in the studio can really make a difference, because if they're at hand and you know that it's going to suit your feed, you can jump straight into it. These are just a few apps that I use, with the exception of the first one, which is a website. Canva is, if you haven't been on Canva, you should just go and have a play. It's a place where you can create graphics and of any kind. And I highly recommend that you go and open up your free account and just have a little play around and look at the templates available in there. Snapseed and Adobe Lightroom are phone apps. Snapseed's owned by Google, and it's amazing what you can do to a photo. So if you're in a room with, you know, what are they called? Fluorescent lights, and everything always looks yellow, just lightening, brightening, changing the warmth on your photo can make a huge difference to how it looks in your feed. So some of these apps might be something that you get, have a play, and if you like them and you think you're going to use them, then I recommend that you spend a few dollars on purchasing the version that doesn't end up with a watermark logo on it. Because again, you know, it sort of messes up your feed, and really all you're doing is promoting their brand. InstaSize is a great Instagram app that, you know, if you're posting images that blow out, sorry, that's my cat, in the feed, then you can put a white border around it so that you get that beautiful, crisp clarity to the photo. And Storio is an app that I love to use if you're doing longer videos. It for your stories in Instagram, it cuts it down into the 15-second spots, so you're not just kind of saying the thing and then stopping and then saying the thing again and then stopping. It gives that beautiful consistency. And I think Hyperlapse is a really good app. Again, it's owned by Instagram, and it's something that you can set up in the corner of your studio or your workshop and show progress. You know, Hyperlapse is one of those things where you know, you might have it up for 2 hours and it condenses it down into a 2-minute video, so you're sort of running around and doing all of your things, and it can be really fun for people to watch. And yeah, so I'm at 11:25. So what I might do now is see if there are any questions.
There is a question, if you have a look in the Q&A box. I'll just read it out. Somebody said, considering my non-Aussie cultural background, where our culture is less out there and more humble, I find it quite difficult to share things about me and my art, as I feel it's bragging or showing off. What would be your advice to this kind of thinking? Thank you.
Ooh. Okay, so yeah, I'll put my details up for sure. Now, I don't think it is bragging or showing off at all. You know, I think that being an artist, my mum is an artist, and sometimes, you know, I hear people say things like, you know, being an artist is actually having your soul on the outside, and that it can be very, very hard to be creative because you're worried about criticism, or you're worried that people won't like what it is that you do. And I think that things like social networks can be a really positive space. People who like what you do will follow you. People who are engaged with who you are will follow you. And as long as you're not, you know, putting things up and talking about how wonderful you are and how you're better than everyone else, you know, there's no bragging involved in showing people what you do. I don't know if anyone else, you know, agrees with that, but the only way to for people to find your art is to put it in front of them. And I don't think that means that you're not humble, and I don't think that means that you're bragging. It's simply just showing people what it is that you do. Okay, so I've got Christy as well. And she says, hi, I'm wondering what your thoughts are, re just doing Instagram and auto sending it to Facebook, struggling to do social media at all, and want to put my energy into one platform to start with. Okay, so if you just post from Instagram directly through to Facebook, your Facebook engagement will drop. And that's not something that they say happens, but it definitely happens. And a lot of people have analysed the data to show that. So if you're going to do one platform, pick one and do that one really, really well. And don't worry about being everything to everyone. If you want to do both of them and you want to share the same content, it honestly just focus on your Instagram and then just simply copy and paste and post the same content straight into Facebook. It'll only take you less than a minute to do it, but it will make a huge difference. There's just something that happens when you don't put that slight bit of effort into it. So highly recommend doing that. Do you think my Instagram account should be linked to Facebook? Yes, Tracy Anderson. If you have a business Instagram account and a Facebook account, or if you have a Tracy Anderson artist account, they should definitely be linked together. And Claire has asked how to keep track of what hashtags are trending. That's a really hard one. It actually just takes monitoring that sort of stuff. So if you set aside, 10 minutes in your week to have a look around at galleries, major galleries and artists and things like that to see what they're using. Generally, they've got big teams of people who are keeping up with all of that stuff for you. So, and you want to just check that your hashtags are actually kind of working. So don't just randomly pick hashtags. Keep checking on them to see what's actually being posted in them, because they do sometimes get hijacked by nefarious people. So it's really important to just keep an eye on what your hashtags are doing. Should you always use images with your Facebook posts, Danielle? Unfortunately, yes. If you're using Twitter, Twitter's a really great way to connect with overseas audiences, and you can kind of get away with just text in Twitter sometimes, but on the whole, you should be using images. I mean, you're talking about fairly visual mediums here. You don't have to do video, but you do really have to put some sort of image with it. Okay, Christy Floors. Esther, you'll have to stop me when you want me to stop. Do you suggest any particular offline drafting programs for Instagram or Facebook? Well, look, you can create drafts directly into Facebook. So if you actually access it on your desktop via the web and you go to publishing tools on your page, there's a section there called drafts. And that's actually a really good place to be creating your drafts, because once you're happy with them and you've put all your tags in and you've done all of those things, then all you have to do is hit schedule or post. And so it's all in there. Instagram, you can set up drafts. So you go through the process of creating the post, and then instead of hitting share at the top, you just hit the back button. And it goes, I think you have to hit it twice, and then it says save as draft. And it actually saves it in a draft so that when you go back in to post a new post, it's just sitting in there ready to go. I use later.com, which is a scheduling tool for Instagram. And also there's another one that I love called Plan with 2 N's, and that's an Australian company. And that's a very visual way to plan your Instagram posts. You can actually see them all laid out. You can kind of move them around before you schedule them to go. Yeah. Instagram keeps telling me I should update to business. Should I transfer? From Margaret. If you're using Instagram, there's a myth that Instagram prefers or will help you if you've got a personal versus a business account. And it's actually just genuinely not true. Your engagement comes down to your audience and what their behaviors are. It definitely does not preference personal over business. Business accounts allow you to advertise if you need to. Business accounts also give you some amazing insights into where your audience is, what content's doing well for you, how many people are viewing it, how many people are clicking on your link, what time of the day your audience is on. So you do get a lot of really, really good insights from a business account. So, I mean, I recommend using it. I love Instagram for business personally.
Well, thank you so much, Erica. We might leave the questions there for now. Yep. And move on to Helen. Perhaps what we'll do is at the end, there'll be a little bit more time for more questions if people want to ask both of you questions or think of questions in the meantime. But that was really valuable. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Erica. Okay, hi everyone. So yeah, I'm an artist and I've been using the social media platforms for about 4.5 years. So I got on Instagram, 2014. And so back then there wasn't as many accounts. So basically it was a whole different experience and a different platform to use. But one thing with social media is adapting to how the platforms work and using it to your advantage, but yeah, also using it as a way of connecting. So basically this is my, Regional Arts Australia has invited me to do this, to engage with you all today. And I'm a little bit nervous. I don't usually talk. I'm usually behind the camera just painting and stuff. So please bear with me. But basically, I see Instagram as a way of having colleagues. As an artist who works regionally, rurally, internationally, wherever, it's a way of having people to talk to and bounce ideas off, and it creates like a studio-like setting, but from your home. Because a lot of us artists, we work from home, we don't have that much engagement with people during the day, or we work from our studio as a solo artist, and it's good to have that engagement and the feedback. So I particularly think it's important for us in the regional, rural and remote areas to have an Instagram, because it actually allows you to be just as relevant in today's market as someone from New York, someone from Sydney, someone from wherever. You have the means, nobody knows where you're from unless you tell them. So you have a way of engaging with everyone and anyone from across the globe. So basically, I'll give you a little bit of a background of me. So yeah, 4.5 years I've been on the platform, but in that time, I've lived in 7 different cities. So I was in Yungella, near Mount Warning in New South Wales. Then I moved to Iluka, a little fishing town. Then we lived on a farm in the Nambucca Valley. Then I got pregnant and we moved to Toowoomba in Queensland to be closer to my family while my husband was working overseas. Then we moved to Brisbane, then we moved to Jakarta, and now we're in Townsville, North Queensland. So what I'm saying is, regardless of your postcode, you can always hook into the relevant community and engage in discourses with anyone locally or globally. Nothing is limited to you now. And it's great. You get feedback from other artists. Sometimes you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person commented on little old me from Townsville. And, you know, they're a huge influencer from America. And that's what's great about it, because there's no real smoke and mirrors. It breaks us all down to the same level. And And in saying that, most of my, 50% of my audience is from abroad. So through my insights, so the business account that Erica was talking about, you can see where people are accessing your content from. 50% is Australia, but 48% is actually the US. I think 1% is the UK, and then it's scattered in all different little places around the globe. So my two major markets are the US and Australia. So that's where your insights come in handy, because you know who you're talking to as well. And it does mean that you and your content from regional, rural, remote Australia is relevant to other people. And you may have seen that my chicken, Mary, was reposted by Design Sponge last week. So people enjoy seeing the difference in our lives and what we do and what makes life interesting, basically. So over the years, I've been engaged in the platform, and it has really worked for me. So I have developed relationships with people like Grace Bonnie from Design Sponge, and she's become a really great ally and advocate of my work, which has helped. That's where my big following from the US, I believe, a lot of that has come from. There's also, I take it quite seriously because I am an artist and I do move a lot. I know that I need to keep my Instagram relevant for everybody. So I do a lot of background research too. So I've read books like Art Inc. by Lisa Condon. I can put these up later as well. I've got books here. Sorry. And see that artwork. Still Like an Artist. There's all these little gems that you can buy and educate yourself on how everything works. And it all is about building a connection with like-minded people. And from that, those connections that you have turn into real life. So I'll show you this so this is Belle magazine. And that's one of my little, I don't know if you can see it, painting. So this is in Belle, not the most recent, this is in May 2018. But this painting was one of the first paintings I did post-uni that I sold. And now it's in this year's Belle magazine, and that's because of the relationships that I've developed. And then another one was with Home Beautiful and Amy Turuli. So another relationship I've developed on Instagram. It turns into an actual tangible product or example of your work. I had Martha Stewart magazine from the US. They found one of my paintings, so they wanted to feature it in their magazine. So they just contact you. Vane magazine from Spain wrote a whole article, which I have absolutely no idea what it said because I couldn't understand it. Label magazine from Netherlands. So it's all about turning, the virtual world, it becomes tangible as relationships grow through Instagram. And I've made some really good friends on Instagram, and, we can all empathize with each other, working from regional and rural, remote areas. It's the same process to make an artwork, but, we get supplies shipped in, have to find framers, have to spend thousands of dollars shipping artwork around. So we do have a bit of a different process than working in a city where it's, one thing moves to the other quite easily. Some challenges with Instagram. It's grown quite substantially, so I don't think it's as easy for people to get followers nowadays as it was. So when I first started, I developed went up to like 20,000 followers quite quickly. And then Facebook brought Instagram, and then all the changes to the algorithm happened, and it was like, what's going on? But in saying that, some people do, really generate a lot of followers and content. And yeah, I think it's about being authentic mainly as well. And that's how you get your loyal and people that you like to engage with as well. As an artist, there is obviously, because there's a lot more artists on Instagram, there's more supply and less demand, so that does come into play. There's only so many walls in the world and so many artists, so that is one of the things that has happened a little more. There are copycats. People, if you do post your full work, you'll get people actually paint your picture and, you know, try and sell it as their own. We had a woman who copied myself and another artist all our paintings and had her own big cartel website set up, which was just, you know, it's fine, but not good. So yeah, as an Instagram user, you just need to be constantly adapting to the platform because it is great. It is, even a business account is free, and it's led to, you know, me being able to be a professional artist, a regional artist, a remote artist as well. So regardless of your postcode, you can be the best that you can possibly be. It requires a bit of a commitment because you do need, as Erica was saying, engagement with people commenting on your posts. You'll get a lot of DMs as well. So you can be going back and forth. Sometimes you won't necessarily remember what someone has said to you and you're like, oh. So you do need a bit of a commitment to processing your Instagram and keeping it up to scratch. It's great because you can interact on a personal level and a real level with the person. For example, what other medium can you actually direct message, say, a CEO of a massive company? None. Whereas Instagram you can. They might not write back to you, but they might. And it's, you know, another relationship that you may have developed. And yeah, that's all I've got written in my notes, which weren't as pretty as Erica's. They're like just that. But I'm also happy to answer any questions about my experience or anything like that. Oh, okay. So I see with Aldona says, with the copycat selling your work online, did you report to Instagram and did they close her account? No, I actually emailed her myself and I just explained how a lot of time and effort and work goes into creating the artworks and compositions and creating your own brand. Like artworks become recognizable as well. And she was fine. She did block me, but then I noticed she took a big cartel down. So yeah, no need to report her in that instance, sorry. Catherine has asked, who are my major influences? I often, I really love Matisse, obviously, Bonnard, Bouliard, but also have many Australian artists that I regularly follow. There's just too many. Dan Kyle, Marina Skozek, Michael Bond, Sam Michelle, Laura Jones. There's endless. There's so much talent. What's the best way to build new followers? I hashtag and do other things, but what's your tip? Keep up with the hashtags because, sorry, this is from Tracy, because that's how I originally got the connection with Grace Bonney from Design Sponge, by using a hashtag DS Color hashtag. And yeah, basically, you know, it's the same as applying to different galleries. You might apply to 50 different galleries and one will pick you up. Same as hashtags. You might do 50 different hashtags and then one will eventually pay off, kind of thing. So yeah, that's my tip. And also stories. I think building, you know, a little bit of a story, because I have read that people watch their stories a lot more than they scroll through Instagram now. So yeah, a bit of content in the stories, which I'm not very good at myself, but because it's not that glamorous around here. As an artist, this is Danielle Harvey. As an artist, what type of content do you look for in an art gallery social media account? Opportunities, inspiration. I think it's just the aesthetic. Yeah, something that appeals to my eyes, the kind of gallery that I'd like to show at or follow. because art's so subjective, we're all going to be interested in different types of art, artwork, and it is diverse. So I do follow a lot of galleries, both nationally and internationally. I have Margaret here. Hi, Helen. Have you tried selling directly on Instagram? I have. I could probably sell a lot of my work on Instagram, but it's important to have good relationships with your galleries and supporters as well. So you can go down the track of selling directly on Instagram if that's what your business plan model is. But I've done a few little sale things on Instagram, and that usually is quite nice. But I also like my paintings to go to the galleries that have supported me and put money into showing my work and hanging my work as well, because it's mutually beneficial. I get a lot of content from that as well for my Instagram, from professional photos, so it's great. I think that's it.
Well, thank you both so much. We've got a couple of minutes, so if anyone has any last questions for either Helen or Emma.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, please do.
When Helen was just talking about the design sponge thing, there are most galleries and most people who, those big accounts that repost art, will have a hashtag that you should definitely use, or be tagging your images. So a local artist down here who does these beautiful sea images, I posted something on a market page that I was running of hers, and I hashtagged this Creo Loves Local hashtag, which is an account that reposts stuff. And they reposted the image and it just went nuts for her. Just like this stupid little hashtag. All of a sudden, she just got all of these followers and all of this interest in her artwork. And so I would highly recommend that you go and you find those, and Helen probably knows what they are, and I might even do some research myself and find them and start just peppering those into your hashtags, because it only takes one of those big galleries or those big I guess they're kind of media outlets for reposting this sort of stuff, for it to sort of explode for you and expose you to like an overseas audience, or to the media or to a gallery owner or something. So, hashtags can be really, really strategic like that. So, yeah. Would I recommend Hootsuite? Not really. It's great. It's really awesome. And for people like me who have like multiple accounts and things, but if it's just you, I highly recommend you just use the platforms themselves. You're probably only using 2 or 3, and you have to be, you have to be sort of doing something very different in Twitter than you would on Facebook and again on Instagram. So you're better off just doing it. You'll get much better engagement when you post on Hootsuite, from Hootsuite. You will notice that your engagement will go down. So unless you are like crazy busy and actually have the time to schedule all your content, it's not worth it.
Yep. So did you see that? Have you ever experienced feeling overwhelmed? Yeah.
Are you going to answer that one though? I think you should answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm always overwhelmed by it. God.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's like the beast that feeds you kind of thing. I've got to do it. I haven't done something for 3 days. What will I use? Is my algorithm going to go down? What's going to happen? But basically, just relax. It's not the end of the world. It is just a platform. And when I was pregnant, I wasn't posting hardly at all, because I was one of these people who's too scared to use oil paint while I was pregnant. And so I barely posted. 9 months later, I picked up my following and my engagement's back to what it was. So I wouldn't worry too much about feeling overwhelmed by it. But it is a very overwhelming idea when you are thinking about it all the time. Erica, did you have anything to add to that, or?
I mean, I find social media a bit overwhelming at times, but I'm just in it all the time, and so it's a very different perspective because it's not. I think it's probably better that you answer that because my my experience is it's not really a realistic one because it is overwhelming at times. So, but what I do is I have this thing which I call 10 out of 10, and if I'm going through phases where it's too much, I actually will pick like 50 accounts that I really need to keep strategically engaging with. And then I'll break those into 10s. And when I have a coffee in the morning, I'll go and engage on 10 of those accounts. And then the next day I'll do the next 10. The next day I'll do the next 10. And then when it gets to the end of the 5 days, I swing back around and do it again. And that way I feel like I'm still commenting, I'm still engaging. People still see me being active, but and I also turn off all my notifications. The only notifications I have are when someone sends me a direct message, because I can't stand all the pings and dings, and I want to sometimes it can rule you. You can be sitting there in the middle of something and you hear this ding 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 ding, and then you start thinking, oh, what's that, what's happening? And so turn off your notifications.
Yes,
it's the best thing you will ever do. But
definitely.
There is one more question from Carmel about other social media platforms such as LinkedIn and Pinterest. So, really Pinterest answer that one.
Pinterest is amazing. Again, it's used massively in the States, in the UK, and other countries, and it is used here as well. Highly recommend you get onto Pinterest and have a look around. It is a bit of a platform for people to steal and poach and misrepresent your artwork. But again, you do have a degree of control over what it is that you share, and be thinking. What I will say about Pinterest, and I'd love to hear what Helen says, is it is a time sucker. And it is like, honestly, I can't even go into Pinterest anymore. It just takes hours away from my life because it's an amazing place. But LinkedIn is a really great place for professional connections, the gallery owners, the business owners, the, interior designers, interior stylists who you should be connecting with. I think you just need to have a think about all of the different platforms and prioritize them and say, if I'm going to be using all of these things, what am I using them for, and how often, how much time am I willing to give them? So if you think that Instagram is going to be a really important platform for you, then give it, and you say, okay, well, realistically, I can give it 3 hours a week, and give it 3 hours a week, and don't give it any more. And with Pinterest, you've got to set yourself some limits on what you do in there. So if it's populating your own account and pushing stuff out, great. If you're just out seeing what everyone else is doing and getting inspiration, then you need to set yourself some really clear guidelines. And I love LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, I really recommend you get in there, and it's an amazing place to connect with people who can really help you. Sorry, Helen, I'd love to hear what you have to say about Pinterest.
Oh yeah, I love Pinterest so much, but as you said, you really do need to set a time limit, because you go down the rabbit hole and it's 1 a.m. in the morning, you're still scrolling portraiture or something. Yeah. So and I do have a LinkedIn, but I have neglected my LinkedIn. So there's a few things from Erica's I've taken away that I'm going to change after this webinar. So good advice.
Well, thank you both again. I found that really, really beneficial, and I'm sure that all of our attendees did as well. I can already see a comment from Tracy saying thank you as well for the amazing tips, and I'm sure she echoes what everyone else thinks as well. So thank you very much. Now, Erica has put her details on the chat for those who have asked. And Helen, if you want to just tell people what your Instagram name is for those who are interested as well.
Yep, no worries. So it's @Helen McCullough. So it's basically just my name, but I'll just quickly type it in down there as well. Hi guys, my Instagram at Helen McCullough.
And John, I might pass over to you to wrap up.
Thank you so much. And look, thank you to three of you, Esther, Helen and Erica, for this really insightful thing. I mean, the nature and quantity of the questions that have come have really indicated people's interest in this, and the depth of it and the reach of it has been lovely. It really achieves what we're trying to do with these webinars. We think it's important that there's a regional arts network of practitioners across the country, and we're doing everything we can to encourage that. This series of webinars is one way that we're doing that. And I might just mention that the next one that we have planned is on the 7th of November, which is about a special thing that we're releasing and coming to the final stages of developing, which is regional engagement guidelines, how to work effectively with touring companies and consultants and research organisations such as universities more effectively in regional Australia, and set out some guidelines for the way we want to do that. The other thing I might mention here is Artlands, which is coming up very soon in Bendigo. It starts on the 10th of October. The reason I mention that is we want to do another webinar with some international visitors that are coming to Artlands from the United Kingdom. Their particular specialty is introducing arts projects to people who aren't normally engaging in the arts. And that promises to be something based on terrific, a $70 million project in the United Kingdom for doing particularly that across regional areas there. So I encourage you to look out for that. I hope I see many of you at Artlands. Thanks again to our terrific panelists and to you, Esther, for running this and organising much of it. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.